Hello, I'm Gaia Orion, and I welcome you to another discussion about art for a peaceful and flourishing world. Today, I'm really happy to interview artist, activist, and community leader Christi Belcourt. Christi is a Métis visual artist with a deep respect for Mother Earth, for the traditions, and the knowledge of her people. In addition to her paintings, she's also known as a community-based artist, an environmentalist, and an advocate for the lands, for the waters, and for the Indigenous people. Her art can be found in many museums' permanent collections. She's won numerous art awards and accolades. Christy, I'm in love with your art and its meticulous painted rendition of beaded designs. Each painting is an explosion of life, transmitting the interconnectedness of all natural elements. I love your uncompromising voice regarding Indigenous rights, protection of the environment, and its biodiversity, all while honoring spiritual aspects of your culture. I've heard you say that we're witnessing a massive revitalization of Indigenous culture with a powerful art and cultural renaissance all over North America, Turtle Island. I think it would be great if you could start by telling us about your involvement with this movement. And I'd love to hear more about what you do with the Onaman Collective.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and I really appreciate you, inviting me to your program. And it's a really cold, blustery winter day here,
Yeah.
where I live in Northern Ontario, and winter is always a really good time to have some self-reflection. It's a quiet time. It's a time of storytelling. It's a time to dive into a good book or to really further your art in a way, because it gives you these moments where you can kind of be alone and just concentrate on art. I think in terms of my involvement with the movement, I suppose, I don't think there is a singular movement. I mean, when you think about revolutions or things like that of the past, is it ever a singular moment that caused anything, or even a single person? I think movements are more like a flock of birds, where the whole flock seems to move as one. And in terms of Indigenous people, as you said, we are in the midst of a renaissance and a revitalization of all the things that were stolen from our people and lost due to colonialism and genocide. And a lot of those things are things such as language revitalization and retention. There's a movement now called Land Back. So that's where people are starting to talk about, getting the land back, taking the land back. There's also, as you mentioned off the top, the issues around pipelines and protection of waters and protection of Indigenous lands. I mean, the water doesn't have any flag. It doesn't have a race. And we're finding that although Indigenous communities are being disproportionately affected by environmentally damaging resource extraction, we are also seeing that this is an area where Native and non-Native people can unite very strongly. So, for example, where there's fracking happening, which is damaging people's waters, well, that's damaging Native communities as well as non-Native communities. It's and so this is the environment. It's almost, I almost see it like you have regular people, regular folks that are living on the land or living close to the land or living in their communities that are being affected by resource extraction. And then on the other side, you have the evil empires of resource extraction companies and multinational corporations that are just reaping and raping the earth in such a way that it's just so violent,
and
and Indigenous communities. It's so short-sighted, and just so greedy, and and people see through that, and it's an area where we can unite. So my involvement in this is just as a person among thousands and tens of thousands and hopefully millions, who care about the earth and who are trying to do whatever we can, for the earth and for the future generations.
Yeah, when
So
you see
that's my involvement in it.
what you see what happened with Greta Thunberg and the protests all over the world, I guess it is millions, in the millions now.
It is in the millions now. And isn't she an amazing person? There are so many young people, like Autumn Pelche is a young person, a water protector. She was named the water commissioner for the Anishinaabeg Nation, up here where we're in the province of Ontario. And it was just like, there's so many young people that are leading this charge. And I'm really immensely proud and stand behind them every step of the way. Yeah.
Is it something that you were always involved in activism, or how did it grow? Because actually I read a bit of your bio, and you were saying how your grandparents did not teach you the language because they wanted you to be ahead in life and just learn English. So, like, how did all that came into your life? Like, your art was there first because your art is all about that. Is it more like with what's happening now, or how did it come into your life? How did the art got connected with the activism, or was it always together, or was it one first and one after?
No, I think it was one first and one after. I think, for me and my journey in my life, I started with my art, but I started before that by observing the earth and observing the plants. And when you're spending a lot of time alone in the bush and going around looking at all the little individual plants and wondering how do they grow, I mean, all of these things were so that I could paint them. I had to understand them. And as I was doing that, through the seasons, I would notice, oh, there's insects on this one. Oh, this is how this is connected to that, or this root system connects here, or this one prefers the water, or, and then what are the beings, the other, the little creatures and insects and things that are around these plants, and how do they coexist, interconnected to each other? How do ecosystems work? And then you start to really, deconstruct all of this stuff and kind of go into the science of it and wonder how do ecosystems sustain life and then sustain all the life on the planet, and how do plants fit into all of that? And so you start to really have this, I don't know, you stand in awe, really. And
I know. I live in the forest. I go to walk every day, and I cannot believe how often I will see something in some formations, maybe with a snow or bark, something that I have never seen before. And sometimes it's something that I will never see again. It's just amazing, the diversity of beauty and yeah, sorry, I'm cutting you off, but I relate. I really relate to what you're saying, because I get so excited out there. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and that's it, right? You get excited, but you also really become humble, and you become aware that nothing on this earth needs us to survive, but we need everything to survive. All the little birds, the insects, the plants, all of it. We need it all, otherwise we can't live on this planet. So they sustain our life, and then you start to cultivate a deep sense of gratitude for every single thing, every single living thing. And with that gratitude comes a responsibility to make sure that it's protected. And so all of these things come with learning, and observing and being aware of life. And this philosophy of everything being interconnected with each other is really an understood philosophy within Indigenous, different Indigenous nations carry this philosophy and understanding of the earth and understanding of life.
Well, I guess I would be like any culture that lives in touch with nature, because then when we say the word philosophy, it seems like something of the mind, but really it's like you said, the word experience. Once you see and you observe and you take time, then you just naturally understand how part of all of that you are. You only have to be disconnected from all of that to be part of this evil machine you're talking about at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So you moved to the, when did you move to the forest, or you used to live in the city and then that's what changed your
Yeah.
life and opened everything up for you? Were you painting before that?
I was raised in the city, and I was painting before I moved
Mm.
to the land. And I was started to attend ceremonies, and started to attend, and by ceremonies, for people that might not understand, those are traditional Indigenous ceremonies, spiritual ceremonies that we have. And I started to attend those as a young person, and I started to hang around with some elders who were very wise and understood what I needed, I suppose, and what I needed in terms of my own path. And they started to kind of guide me. And after a while, it's through their I guess conveyance of the philosophy of life. It started to open my mind and expand my mind and allow me the creativity to think in a certain way. And then when I did move to the land finally, it was already there, and all I needed to do was just have the experience of being on the land, in the forest, in the bush, and spending time in there to really then start to learn from the plants themselves. So the plants and the land and everything in the land became my teacher at that point.
Mm-hmm. So why do you think today, why now this renaissance of the a native cultural you know just flourishing that is happening? Why
Well,
now? It wasn't there. You must see something. I mean, for me, it's obvious. So many art exhibition are a celebration of those cultures connected to Mother Earth, which is really beautiful.
I guess I can't even say why at this point. It's just speculation on my part, but
Mm.
I have some kind of feelings that uh, you have cultures and that are deeply rooted to place here in North America that are tens of thousands of years old. So certain, indigenous nations, there's many indigenous nations across North America, and all of those nations are deeply rooted to the places where their ancestors lived and are buried. And even if they've moved, they're still deeply rooted to these lands and the
Mhm.
stories of these lands and the spiritual beings that exist in these lands. So it's not just an empty place. I mean, this is a place that has a very spiritual significance to people, and it's the whole island, the whole Turtle Island, which is all of North America, is the Mecca for Indigenous people. This is our place. This
Mhm.
is the only place we can be and exist in the world that makes sense for us. And so, despite the diversity among the different nations in terms of cultures and languages, there are some similarities, and those similarities are shared experiences. And these places that we're deeply rooted to, that we've been displaced from, so as the lands were being stolen, all happened around the same sort of time. So you
Mhm.
have people that existed in a place or in places for tens of thousands of years, and then all of a sudden that becomes disrupted by people coming from overseas, taking over the lands and stealing the lands and violently oppressing the people. That can only be kept down for so long. You can't successfully assimilate Indigenous people, which is what they tried to do They tried to assimilate Indigenous people, and it failed. It failed miserably. And
Mm-hmm.
so all of the things that are rising up now, that are coming, that are being expressed by Indigenous artists, are just merely a sort of a bubbling to the surface of what was always there. So even though it's taken on a modern kind of a context in terms of maybe mediums and different applications or different expressions through different arts, all of these things are just always what was there within us as Indigenous people. And so you can't keep that down for very long. It's going to come out again. And so people are very rarely able to assimilate other cultures and other people successfully. And I'm happy to say that it's failed. The other reason why I think people are experiencing a resurgence right now is because of the state of the earth. So as people who are deeply connected to the earth, we are feeling maybe through an energy level the panic of the earth. Not the panic of the earth, that's not the right way to say it. We are feeling the stress on the earth. And that stress is because our bodies are really one with the earth. We feel that. And I don't actually think that this is just an Indigenous experience. I actually think that this is a human experience, but many of us are in denial about it. But I really feel like the state of this earth, this unsettled feeling, this feeling like everything is going topsy-turvy, like we're living in crazy town, like we just can't, nothing seems to be right. There's so much violence, there's so much hatred. All of these things are maybe an underlying thing of the fact that human beings are so deeply rooted to the earth, that the stress that we're causing the earth is also affecting us on this subconscious level, and it's manifesting itself in this kind of frenzy of of just like of things that don't make sense to us. I don't know if that's true, and I don't even know if it can be scientifically proven, but I think that that's how I feel about it, and that's what I'm this is all guesswork on my part.
Yeah. Now, I'm interested in you talking a lot how Indigenous culture and even the art are connected to the earth, but is very connected to spirit. And what would you have to say about that? Because you talked about going to ceremonies, and I feel like this colonialism have try to crush that spirit. It is crush a spirit inside of themselves by doing that. A lot of so-called Western people are looking for answers, and actually, I'm from France, and I can't believe how many people go to do sweat lodges or go to native wisdom, even in South America or the Amazon, for finding peace with themselves, or for finding what they can't find in the life that we have created for ourselves. How do you see your culture's role in that, in part of the revival? I just see a connection. I wonder how you see.
I'm not really a big fan of people going to other people's cultures to find their own spirituality, because the thing is that the earth doesn't require us to go into sweat lodges or anything. I mean, you just have to sit on the earth, make your offerings. I always say the earth is my government. The earth tells us how to govern ourselves. It's us who try to fight against that as a human species. So what we do is we create calendars and schedules and clocks, and none of those things are conducive with the natural cycles and the natural laws of the earth. We try and subjugate the earth. We try and own the earth, for example. We have fences all over. All of these things are things that naturally work against the earth's systems, and they work against us in the long run. Like you so aptly put, it really, it's us against ourselves, really. And so for people who are not Indigenous, there are, within all over the world, people all lived close to the earth at one time.
Sure.
And so it's to go back to the roots of where people come from and discover those teachings and philosophies that happened before, Judeo-Christianity took over the world. And that kind of thinking of that we can own the earth and somehow subjugate it, or that it was put here for us to subjugate. So my feeling is that the spirituality exists all around us because I actually have a hard time seeing a separation between spirit and physical, in the sense that we are living on this giant ball of water that is, in outer space, like circling around a giant ball of fire. Like, there's nothing that to me is proof enough that it's just this, we're living in a very mysterious state that we can't explain away very easily. And if we live in a state of awe, and we do live in that state of gratitude, then we will naturally adjust ourselves into understanding spirituality in a way that's within us. That's where it comes from. So the spirituality that's within me is the same that's within you. And your connection to the earth is just as much as mine is. And just because I happen to be an Indigenous person doesn't mean that my connection is more than somebody else's. That would be really silly. And so I always encourage people to go back to their own roots, to understand where they come from, and to find those forms of spirituality that connects them to the earth in those original places where they come from. That said, however, Indigenous knowledges about the earth and how to survive in balance with the earth is something that I think Western science and education and governments could really benefit from if they would listen a little bit better. I really feel that our government could benefit a great deal from really listening to Indigenous elders and Indigenous people on the earth and on spirituality in that sense, because it would mean that we wouldn't dig any deeper than the depth of a plow or a hand width, which was one of the original things that was included in treaty. Was that Europeans were not to dig any deeper than the width of a hand. And there's reasons why Indigenous people had that philosophy. It was because you disrupt the spiritual balance of the earth when you do that, when you dig deeper. And Indigenous people didn't have to have big machines to know that, which is why when non-Indigenous people came to this continent, the continent was pristine. There was nothing. There was nothing destroyed. And that's the understanding, the philosophy of how to walk softly on this earth, is how to leave nothing behind you that is disruptive, where the grass grows back over your every footstep, where it almost like it disappears, that you were never there. That's how to live in balance with the earth. You don't make a mark on the earth.
So,
you don't. You walk away, so that when your life is done, it disappears. Everything disappears as if you were never there.
Maybe the problem with Western culture is because it's just it's so far back, that time that we lived in connection with the earth. Maybe it goes back to the Celts, and that's almost 2000. I mean, maybe before Christianity. That's 2,000 years. So maybe it's harder. It's not as obvious to go back to that. So maybe that's why they're looking to the closest cultures that we know of that have actually, actual offerings and rituals, and that helps to reconnect. I know I understand what you're saying by, I guess we could talk a little bit about that, because it could be interesting in connection to the arts too. But I understand your concern with the cultural appropriation. But do you want to talk a bit more about that?
I think that it is concerning. Like, I would never go into a sweat lodge that was run by a non-native person. I just wouldn't. It's not their culture. It's not right to do those ceremonies. unless you've been absolutely trained from a very young age and been given the permission by your teachers, and even then, it's it's not something that can be properly conveyed, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. I just feel like these ceremonies are for us. We've had enough of people taking over our things, but at the same time disrespecting and not taking over our ceremonies, taking over our lands, taking over our cultures, taking over our visual, visual material cultures, and yet at the same time nothing is coming in this direction back, like the land.
Yes.
So I don't know. I just feel like there's such a massive imbalance of
I think it's
everything
really
that's
good.
been taken.
Yeah, it's really good to hear that from you, Christi. Yeah, that it's enough, like leave us alone now. I really get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. With the Onaman Collective, so what have you been doing? I'm interested.
Well, Isaac Murdoch and I formed the Onaman Collective with Aaron Consmall a number of years ago. We have done everything from massive gatherings to just workshops to creating art to traveling the continent, trying to connect with other water protectors and making banners. We pretty much do whatever we fancy at the moment, and then we just go do it. So, and then one of the projects that we started with others, so it wasn't just us, of course, was we started building Nimki Ajibikong, which is a language camp for youth and elders out on the land. And that's pretty much been what we've concentrated on for the last couple of years, which involves a lot of fundraising and stuff because we're still in building mode, but we're going to be, we're almost done building the cabins and building everything that we plan to build out there. We're almost done now. And when we're done, then the focus then becomes just on the language and on traditional arts and contemporary arts. So we want to create space on the land where people can come and just be and create without a schedule to kind of constrict the creativity. So we're looking to create space where young people can come and just exist and create for however long they want to be out there. And kind of guide and occasionally have masters. Like last weekend, we just had a master basket maker come, and so the people were able to work under the tutelage of that master basket maker. And now that they have those skills, they can continue to do it on their own. So those are the kinds of things that we're doing, is trying to create space and opportunity for people just to do their to gain really good, solid skills in creating traditional arts.
Very good. That's amazing. So, what's the capacity of maybe what you have now, and what's your vision with this?
Well, we have a very small core group right now, but what we do is we will organize specific events so that we can invite more people and open it up to more people. On average, our sort of more concentrated, I guess, in-depth sort of master classes are probably about 15 people, but our gatherings have had up to 200 people. So when we have, we had a traditional Indigenous tattoo gathering where we invited traditional tattoo artists from all across the globe to come. Wow. And then we had people get tattoos and talk about tattooing and share information among the tattoo artists and that kind of thing. And a lot of it was done in ceremony. And so we had about 200 people there. So it just depends. I mean, sometimes it's 200, sometimes it's 5. It just depends on what people are doing at the time.
So that's a lot of energy and times and resources to put that together. Do you have time for your own personal art practice? How do you manage all that?
Yeah, I didn't. I put it aside for a year or so while we were getting this up and running, because
Mm-hmm.
you're right, it did require that kind of time and energy, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
just on top of it to try and to move it along. Uh, The problem that we have is when we try and do things from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and you're looking to pay everybody and pay yourself and all of that stuff, it doesn't work. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
get something done, sometimes you just have to go without pay. You have to volunteer your time, and you just have to put your whole self into it
Mm-hmm.
and give it all you got. And when you do that, you'll see the results. Um, rather than treating it like a job. But now that we're almost done building, I've started painting again, and oh boy, does it ever feel good!
Oh.
I have a thousand ideas
Yeah.
percolating in my head that I wasn't able to get to, and now that I have some time, I'm excited to get back to it.
Oh, wonderful. And plus, I see your painting. They're very, I mean, I can tell they take a long time. So 1,000 idea, that's 1,000 years of worth of painting in your mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Or you have multiple ideas that go into one of the canvas because there are so many stories in each canvas. Mm,
That's a bad idea.
yeah. Just trying to make it as efficient as possible there. I had to get those ideas out. Yeah. So maybe it would be a good time now to hear about some of the art that you have chosen. We don't really have time to go through the whole list, but would you pick? I love the selection that you gave to include in the directory of transformational art of the podcast. Would you pick one that you feel would be interesting to talk about, in particular?
Yeah, I mean, from the list,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be able to see that I've chosen some art and artists who I feel are doing a lot to, like, there's some of them are well known among Indigenous people,
Mm-hmm.
um, but maybe not so well known among the broader public. And I feel that the broader public would really benefit from these voices. And
Great.
so um, the visual artist that I chose was my friend Isaac Murdoch.
Yeah.
And the reason why I chose him was because you know, he's a storyteller. That's his real gift. He's also a visual artist, and he studied pictographs among his people for many years, and has worked very closely with elders throughout decades. And that really comes across in his whole philosophy of life and his whole teaching. And so there's he's just a wealth of knowledge. And so by like following him on Facebook, or where I think Facebook is probably the best one, every once in a while he pops out like stories or these little like blurbs of like experiences he had or things like that. And it's just it somehow does something to your thinking that makes you think more positively, gives you some hope. He's just a really impressive human being. And so I would recommend that people follow him on Facebook, just because it's a kind of a light in that really dark, negative social media space. And the other person is Robin Wall Kimmerer. She's the one who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my favorite books. I jump into it. You can open it sort of anywhere, but she takes the philosophy about what we were discussing in great detail, and then melds it with sort of science and this kind of prose that feels a little bit like poetry. And her words are I don't know how to describe them, maybe juicy and delicious. And the way that she writes about life from an Indigenous lens and the earth, and how her philosophy is exactly my philosophy, and so it's so much in common. But she's such a wordsmith that she's so much better at putting this all down. I feel that that book is just an uplifting book that makes you feel, I don't know, good inside for being alive. And I recommend it highly.
Oh, wow, beautiful. And it's also kind of a scientific description of what's happening also on our land, right? I looked at it a little bit
That's right.
on top of the poetry that
A
you're
little bit, but it's
describing.
not really. Sorry, it's not really a. It's not a. As far as I can tell, it's not about a specific place. Although she talks about her homelands and she talks about places, it's not about a specific time in place. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's more about the philosophy of the earth,
Mm-hmm.
and then she backs it up with science. It's beautiful. It's a beautifully written book.
Well, I sound like I will be getting it, and then we'll share that on the resources of the page that I'll dedicate to you on the podcast website. And I want to say that I've been following your Facebook posts, and you've been going on a marathon of posting. I don't know if you've all finished now, 100 uplifting posts. That was amazing to hear all the stories
Yes,
from something that your mom bakes to like little thing that makes you happy. Like, I don't know how many people are looking at this, but if you want some positives, you can follow Isaac, but you can also follow Christy. It's just, my heart melts and so many other stories that you have shared.
well, thank you so very much.
Mhm. Now, were there anything that you would like to add that you feel that we haven't gotten to? We have a couple minutes extra.
No, I don't think so. I just want to thank you for doing your podcast, and I really appreciate your questions and your depth of knowledge and your own feelings on things. It was really a pleasure speaking with you.
Oh, wonderful. You have no idea how excited I was that to have you and that you have accepted. And yeah, I think this is wonderful. It's going to be a really, really good contribution to the type of people that I want to show. We finishing this conversation about bringing positivity in this world. And when I see the contemporary art world, I was in Miami at the Art Basel. It's this big international art fair, and there was so much like thing that, I mean, these are beautiful pieces of art, but there's also a lot of stuff that is really absurd, like the story of the banana taped on the wall. I don't know if it came across your feed. And it's kind of a sad statement about where we at as a culture. And I want to talk about art that will inspire and uplift us and help us in each of our lives take action to contribute to create the world that we need to recreate. We have to reinvent everything, and that's also by going back to some of the wisdom that you people have to offer. So thanks so much again for being here.
Thank you.
So you can
Thank you.
find more information on Christi on her website, christibelcourt.com. And please visit the podcast website, gaiasartpodcast.com. And until next time, I wish you a healthy, happy, and creative living. Bye for now.